Everyone, this is Scott Clem. I'm one of our Campbell County commissioners, and I thought I'd go ahead and put together some videos, try to do maybe kind of like a virtual town hall kind of thing as far as talking about our upcoming budget and important information that you all uh, might want to know about. And also kind of, I guess, in a way to make this, something in a kind of a podcast style. And so my goal, my aim is to really make some shorter videos. By shorter, I mean something around the time frame of 10 to 20 minutes, but really not much longer than that, and cover specific topics that you might think are relevant. And you can help me out with that by letting me know if there are certain things that you want to know about, that you want me to cover. Uh, I'm totally open to suggestions. I'm really doing this more for the benefit of the public more than anything else, wanting to make myself accessible to others as far as questions, comments, concerns that you might have. Of course, you can always reach out to me. You can email me. My email address is found on our county website. You can also give me a call. My contact information is all there. And if you want to know it right now, my phone number is 307-660-7141. You can reach out to me that way as well. But really, what I want to do is create these videos really to get more people involved and to get people information. I'm going to try more than anything else, especially like with this video and probably some others as well, to keep it really apolitical. My goal isn't to um, give my opinion really one way or the other, but really to share information and let you all come up with your own opinions, and then you can share those with me. All right. And that's not to say that I'm not going to obviously share my opinion or get political in some of these videos. But really, this one and some of the others, my goal really is, like I said, to get information out more than anything else. And so if you find this beneficial in any way, please let me know, because it really is for your benefit more than anything else. It does take some time to do these things, and as I do these videos like this one, I'm really doing this kind of unscripted. I mean, I've got a few notes of things that I know I need to go over and cover, but I don't have like a script or anything necessarily that I'm following. So if it looks a little bit thrown together, that's because it is. I'm kind of doing this off the cuff, so to speak. I find that when I do videos like this, and if I really try to get down to the I really focus in too hard or try to do a lot of editing and things like that. It takes so much time to do that on my end, and it's time that I just don't have. And that's part of the reason that's kept me from doing these kind of things, because I wanted to do a lot more of them in the past. But it's the editing part that really kind of scares me away. So I'm going to throw this out there pretty much unedited. I'm not going to bother with a whole lot of um, things that might make the video look flashy, like a cool intro or anything like that. It's just going to be what it is. All right, so we're preparing for our next budget. And so for those of you who don't understand what that means, we are looking at the 2026-2027 budget. Our budget year runs from July 1st to June 30th every single year. So we're a little bit kind of offset, you might say, with the calendar year. And it's not just us. The state of Wyoming also has that kind of a fiscal year as well. It's a little bit different with the federal government. The federal government, I believe theirs runs from like October 1st through September 30th or something like that. So it's even a little bit more different, a little bit more wonky. But for our purposes, we're getting ready to put together our budget even now. So 6 months in advance, where we are preparing steps for this next year's budget. And one of the things that we do during this time of the year is I'm talking about the commission, we put together a budget message. By the way, let me just throw it out there right now. I am not speaking on behalf of the commission or anything like that. I am speaking on behalf of myself. And if I ever use the term we, it's because these are things that have already been decided by the commission. I don't want to misspeak on behalf of the other commissioners in the slightest. And so I might emphasize that over and over again, that these are my opinions, my thoughts. Again, what I'm trying to do is just inform you about some of the structure and how we go about doing some things. So the commission will put out a budget message. We've already met last week for the first time. And hopefully what we'll have is a budget message that will go out to our various departments that really sets the tempo of what we want to see in preparation for the 2026-2027 budget. And we do this every single year. Now, in order to create a budget message that's thinking about this next year's budget, we have to have information. Part of the information that we rely upon is the assessed valuation of the county, but we don't know what that's going to be in the next upcoming year. And so around this time of year, we get an estimate from our county assessor. Again, it's unofficial, but we kind of get a ballpark of what our assessed valuation is, and that's going to determine how much tax revenue that we take in via our mill levy. For most of you, I think you're aware that the county government, its biggest revenue generator is property tax. And by property tax, I'm not just talking about residential property tax. That's gotten a lot of attention here lately. But property tax is more than just residential. It's commercial, it's industrial, it's agriculture, and it's minerals. In fact, the biggest part of our revenue in Campbell County doesn't come from residential property tax, but it comes from mineral property tax. We also call that ad valorem. And so these ad valorem taxes on production, on minerals, i.e. property taxes on minerals, these are the types of revenues that really carry not only the county, but in some sense carry the state as well. Now, the state doesn't receive property tax, but it does receive severance taxes. Those two are different. I'm not going to get into the details of what and why that is for right now. Suffice it to say that the county can tax up to 12 mills. It can assess up to 12 mills, and what a mill is it's trying to think of the number. It's a thousandth. In other words, it's a thousandth of a dollar. Or you might think of it this way: if you think of a penny, a tenth of a penny is what a mill is. And so, if we were to put it this way, for every $1,000 of assessed valuation, 1 mill of that is $1. So, if we're talking about an assessed valuation of $1,000. $1 is what a mill is worth, and if we were to tax up to the full 12 mills, that would generate $12 on an assessed valuation of $1,000. I hope that kind of helps, and it'll make more sense a little bit later on as we kind of go through some things. All that to say, the assessed valuation is a figure that's given to us by our county assessor, and it essentially says, here is what all of the property in Campbell County, and it's everything, it's all encompassing. It's residential, it's commercial, it's agriculture, it's minerals, it's everything. All of that together comes up to a figure, and usually that figure in Campbell County has been around the $4 billion to $5 billion range. And if we were to move the decimal point over a few spots, then what we would find is what a mill is worth. And so for right now, I think this year that we're on right now, the assessed valuation is somewhere like at $4.8 billion. And that equates to 1 mill equaling about 4.8 million, right? So that's what a mill is worth. That gives us an indication of how much revenue is going to come in. It gives us an indication also of where we need to look at setting the mill levy. In Campbell County, we are one of only 2 counties in the entire state that does not assess the full 12 mills of property tax. And that's not to say that Campbell County hasn't before in the past. It has, but it hasn't in a really long time. And in fact, our mill levy currently is at 10.95 mills. And it's been at that rate for the last couple of years. But that can fluctuate up and down. And if you look at the county, and we're going to see some data here in a second, if you look at that mill levy, it has fluctuated up and down. In fact, I think over the last 10 years, the highest that it's been, I believe, is like 11.286 mils. I don't think there's any there's really not any appetite, I think I can say, and again, I'm speaking from my opinion only, but as I look at kind of the landscape of things with the commission, this current commission, I don't think there's any appetite to assess up to the full 12 mills. It's not necessary, and I think you'll see that in some of the data that we look at. But part of what I'm getting at is, in order to come up with a budget message, we're needing data. Assessed valuation, or an estimate of assessed valuation, is one of those pieces of data. But there are other pieces of data that we need as well. We need to know, what was last year's budget, and that's pretty well easy to find out. But then there's some other numbers that maybe aren't so easy to figure out. For instance, we need to know not only what we budgeted, but what was the actual expenditures, right? So those are going to be different. What we actually budget and the actual expenditures, what we spent, those are going to be different numbers, and those are going to be relevant as we think about a future budget. Same thing with tax revenue. We can anticipate how much tax revenue we're going to get in, but what was the actual tax revenue? So all of these things feed into some of the decision making when it comes to a budget message, and consequently the budget for this next year. Now, what I want to do in the rest of this video, more than anything else, is I want to show you where you can go to find information. And some of this information is going to help you as you're thinking about things and as you have input for your county government. Data is your friend, but there's a lot of different places to find data, and sometimes we don't even know where to look. So that's what the rest of this video is about, and that's what I'm going to focus on. So I'm going to transition this over so that you can see my website here. I've got several tabs pulled up at the top, and we're going to look at each one of those. The first one, very simple place to go to for data, is your Campbell County government website. It's Campbell County Y, that's WY.gov, campbellcounty.gov. And this is going to take you to our homepage, our landing page for the website. And if you go up to your government, you can go over to this little tab here where it says budget and finance. And there is a ton of great information that you can find when it comes to your county government. Some people don't realize this, but there is an immense amount of transparency, as there should be, and we're working on making things even more transparent, even more data for the public. But you're going to be able to find a lot of information here. A couple of things that you should be aware of. By law, your county government must post its budget to the website, and it must have an audit, a third-party audit, by a separate CPA. It must have an audit every single year. All right, this is not like the federal government where they can get away with pretty much anything, even murder. It's not like that with county government or state government. Things are a lot. It's more common sense, you might say. From the lower the governments, the closest it gets to the people, the more common sense, and that's just the way that it is. You go to the federal government, and it's a bunch of nonsense. So we're not going to talk about the federal government, though. We're talking about county government. These things have to be posted to the website, and this is where you can find some of those things. So one of the things that you can look at, for instance, is budgets. I'm going to click on budget. You can look at our county budget. You can look at special district budgets. We're going to look at the county budget. And notice here, you have budgets from going back to 2003, 2004. So you got all these different county budgets. You got different budget messages, right? So we could look at last year's budget message. We'll just click on this for grins and giggles and check this out. So this is the budget message that we created last year around this time. This isn't the budget message for this year. We're creating that now as we speak. So this one essentially said that we wanted to keep the spending flat. We wanted to essentially keep everything flat, and you can read that budget message. It's going to be a little bit different this year for many different reasons, and I'll get into that later. Let's go back over here. You can see the different budget resolutions. You can see the orders levying requisite taxes. In other words, this is the order that says what you're going to be taxed. All of this information is accessible. Excuse me. Let's look at the 2025-2026 county budget, which is what we're in the middle of right now. In other words, we're in the middle of the fiscal year for this budget, and we authorized, as you can see here, and it might be a little bit hard to see. Let me see if I can make that just a little bit bigger. Hold on here. I don't know if that's going to help. Not really. I'd have to move that over a little bit. Let me go back. Sorry. Told you we're doing this off the cuff. See if I can do it this way. There we go. If you can see, it's kind of hard to see here. But the grand total for the 2025-2026 budget is $145.9 million. In other words, that's the ceiling. This is what your county commissioners, your county government has approved and said you can spend up to this amount. And you'll notice that it's broken down by all of these different divisions, all of these different oops, all of these different departments of government. And you can see what dollar amount is allocated to each and every one of these divisions. It gives you an indication, somewhat of an indication about how much these things actually cost. Now, a little bit of caveat. This is what is approved, but this isn't what is actually expended. And what you're going to find is there is a pretty big variance between what is actually approved and what is actually expended, to the tune of about 15 to 30%, which is a problem. We're going to talk about all of that at another time. My point here is I just want you to see where this information can be found and what you can look at. Let's look at one other thing here. So if you go back over to the budgets and finance, again, you can see county salaries, you can see annual reports, you can see audits. Remember, I mentioned that we are required to do an audit. So if you go back over to this page, and you can see all of these audits going back to fiscal year 2006, 2007. We're required by law to do these audits every single year and post them on our county website. Let me say something quick about audits. Back in, I believe it was around 2019, 2020, somewhere around then, the county government ended up switching to a different financial accounting system. I can't remember what they were using at that time, but they switched to something called Tyler/Munis. And Tyler essentially is the accounting software that our county had switched to. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting. At that time, those people who were serving in government in, say, the clerk's office, we're not talking about like elected officials so much, although the elected officials were different around that time as well. But you had different county staff that were working at that time who essentially, when the county went from one accounting software to another, they ended up kind of merging the old way and the new way together. And I think part of that is, when you do things a certain way for such a long time, for decades, it's easy to kind of want to make the new way match what you were doing as far as the old way. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is that kind of messed up how Tyler was designed to function. Let me put it this way, for a term that you're familiar with. Everybody is familiar with, what it means to jimmy rig something. And I'm not trying to make this sound, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or anything like that, but that's kind of essentially what happened, right? This brand new accounting software was kind of jimmy rigged to incorporate some of the old ways that we were doing things. And there was kind of these back doors and things like that. All of that to say, the people who were around back then, they knew what they were doing and they knew how it worked, and it worked for them. But then a lot of those people left. They retired, or during this time we went through a period where we were cutting through attrition. So, people were resigning or moving elsewhere or whatever. And we lost a bunch of people, and we lost, in particular, the people who had set up this new system, kind of had it jimmy rigged with the old way of doing things. And this was a problem. And it's a problem that we're still dealing with to this day, because Tyler was not being used to the level, to the way that it was supposed to be used. And unfortunately, we created some bad habits during this time. And as we started to do our audits, as we do every year, we find that there's some real messes that were being made, and we're still really kind of cleaning up those methods. Fast forward to today, we are using Tyler the way that it should be. I came onto the commission in like August of 2024. I was appointed. And before I was even on the commission, the commissioners at that time had already kind of set the direction as far as we've got to clean this thing up for the benefit of the taxpayers. And so that's the trajectory that we've been on for quite a long time. As a result, however, we've had a backlog of audits. We should have our 2024-2025 budget audited by now. Lord willing, we will have that done by this, I believe the This June is what we're shooting for. And once we have that done, we're going to be all caught up. But as it stands, the 2023-2024 Campbell County audit is the most recent one that we've done. The good news with everything that I've just said is that we, and I'm talking about the county enterprise as a whole, at the direction of the Campbell County Commissioners, which started before even I got on the board, really set the trajectory that we are going to clean these things up. We are going to use our accounting software as it should be, and we are going to make sure that we are doing everything on the up and up, and at the highest level of excellence that we are expected to do here in the county, and our county staff have been diligent about delivering that. I have to give great kudos to our executive director of the commissioner's office, to our county clerk, to our county treasurer. All of those different departments are working together to make sure that everything is transparent, everything is on the up and up. Of course, when you get a backlog of something like this, and when some of those financial records don't always match up, I don't know about you, but one of the things that I think of is, has there been fraud anywhere? The good news is there's been no fraud that we can see. Even though it's taken some time to actually clean the books up and to make sure everything is reconciled, we can track where those dollars have gone. And so while we might have had a mess in some of our accounting, the good news is everything seems to be accounted for. And the county is in a really strong position. That's all I'm going to say on that. Going back to some of the information here. So that's one place you can find information. A second place that you can find information, let me just show you here, is you can find a folder that I've created. This is a Google Docs drive that I have put certain information in. And this is completely accessible to the public. This is something that's under my ownership, and it consists of not only documents that you can find on the county website, like audits. You can see that here. I've put the last 5 years worth of audits in this folder, but also then some of the data that I've worked on personally myself. I've went through the last 9 years of these audits, and essentially, I put together some spreadsheets that you can take a look at yourself. Let's look at one of them here. This is it's called County Revenues versus Expenses. It's got some tabs down here: budget, investments, revenue. I'm going to have to go over this another time. Okay, so I'm not trying to, give you what this means right now. I just want you to see that this is available, and what you can find on here is again going back to 2015, 2016. What our audits actually record. And what you can see here is you can compare the original budget. So let's just use 2015, 2016 as an example. You can see the original budget for that year was $170 million. The actual expenditures, however, were $108 million. So that's a huge difference, right? That's $62 million. And we'll talk about that another time. Our assessed valuation at that time was $6.2 billion, and we taxed 11.051 mils. Each mil, so again, $6.2 billion equates to $6.2 million roughly per mil. And you can figure out kind of the anticipated revenue. Our audits show what was the actual revenue that was taken in. And here you can see it was $122.3 million. Now, that's not all property tax, okay? Property tax is the biggest part of the county's revenue, but the county also receives dollars from sales and services, for instance. So, for instance, if you go to a Campbell County Rec Center, you're going to pay an entrance fee to get into the door. That also is part of this actual revenue collected. So, some of those service fees and whatnot. There is also sales and use tax. So, we receive a portion of the sales and use tax here in Campbell County as well. All of that together, every single source of revenue gives us the actual revenue collected, which was $122 million. And you can see then the difference between the actual revenue and the actual expenditures was $14.25 million. In other words, there was a surplus that year. We spent less than what we had taken in. So anyway, you can take a look more at that. Where do you find this folder, you say? Well, I'm going to show you. If you're on Facebook at all, if you find this page here, I'm going to click on it. It says Scott Clem, WYO Politics. This is the page that I have created for my role as a county commissioner. And if you were to go on the landing page here, and then you click on the About tab, go down to Links, and you can find this Google Drive link right here. You can click on it, and you have access to any number of those documents that is listed in that publicly accessible folder. So that is for you. You can take a look at that if you would like to. Another place where you can find, let me get over here. Another place that you can find great information is through some of our state departments. So the one I'm on right now, this is the Wyoming Department of Audit. And I'm going to show you where you can find some documents because it's not necessarily easy to navigate. But this is the landing page. So if you were to Google it and click on the link, this is the site that you would come to. And if you go up here to where it says public funds, and then you go to reports, you can find different reports. And the one that I'm going to take you to first of all is internal reports. So if you click on an internal reports, you're going to come up to another Google Docs drive. Again, this is managed by the state. This is accessible to anybody. And you can click on, for instance, the audits tab. And you can find audits for state agencies, for school districts, for PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, and then for local government. So counties, cities, towns. If we were to click on counties, cities, towns, you can go over to Campbell County, wherever Campbell County is. Campbell County. Says no current reports. That's because we haven't finished the 2024-2025 audit, which we will complete hopefully this June. But anyway, you can go back and you can look at some of the old audits and everything like that as well. You can go to something. Let me go over to the cost of government reports. This is pretty interesting. You can go to this cost of government report. You can see the cost of towns, the cost of special districts, the cost of government for counties. Now, one of the things, let me just throw out a bit of a warning, and that is this information, the cost of government, comes from what's called an abstract that is given by the county to the Wyoming Department of Audit every September. Remember, our fiscal year ends on June 30th, and then the new fiscal year starts on July 1st. And what it ends up happening is a few months later, by I think it's like the 1st of September, we are supposed to every year send an abstract of up to that point in time what our actual expenditures and what our actual revenues are to that point in time. But the issue is the accounting method that is used is a little bit different for the abstracts. Not only that, but not everything has been not everything has kind of cleared the books, so to speak. In other words, that's what the audit is for. The audit is a sure way to know exactly this is what you spent, this is what you took in, and this is what your balance is, so to speak. And while this report, the cost of government, I think again it's due the 1st of September. And you can take a look at that. The audits are due, I believe it's by December or the end of December. So in other words, a few months later. So while this information is helpful, it is not as reliable as the audits. If you're going to look at anything, I want to encourage you to look at the audits. Anyway, you can find information there at the Wyoming Department of Audit. Another place you can find some good information is this is a third party. This isn't anything to do with it's not a government agency or anything like that. This is the Wyoming Taxpayers Association. And again, this is kind of a watchdog group, so to speak, that is looking out for taxpayers. It's a great resource. They've got some great information. This is not a division of the government. It's not a division of state government. It's not a division of county government. This is its own third party, watchdog organization, like I said. But some of the cool things that you can find as far as information, if you go to the Cowboy family, this is really interesting. You can actually figure out what your taxes are and what your taxes are going to. I'm not going to spend a lot of time looking at this tool, but this is an awesome tool, something fun that you can play around in, and it's specific to not only your county, but also your municipality as well. The one thing that I wanted to show more than anything, though, is if you go to research and education, you can find something called publication and reports. You can also look at Wyoming tax structure. A lot of different stuff on here. And this is a great resource because it not only helps to explain the differences between the tax structure at the state level and the county level and the local level, but it gives you some of that really detailed, in-depth information as well. And so one of the publications here that I think is worth checking out is this Wyoming property taxation. And I believe I actually put this report. I downloaded it and it's in the drive. Was this the one that I had did? That's not the right one, but the little Google Drive that I created, this report is also in there. And it's cool because you can see Campbell County, you can see 2024, 2025, you can see a lot of great information. It's really, really awesome. And not just for Campbell County, but you can see that for all counties and also going into municipalities, for school districts, a lot of great information. Okay, last place that I want to talk about here as far as where to find some good information is the Wyoming Department of Revenue. So again, if you just Google Wyoming Department of Revenue, you can click on the link. It'll take you to their landing page. And one of the helpful reports that I have found over the years has been the annual report that comes from the Wyoming Department of Revenue. Now, this is kind of a monster report because it is capturing lots of different information. It's capturing property taxes. It's capturing sales and use taxes. It's capturing other excise taxes. It is capturing everything. So in other words, all of the money that comes into the state, which can include property taxes, it flows through the state down to the local level. But all of that money that flows through the state, it's going to be captured here in this report. And so you can see, let me just show here. There's the table of contents. So you can just see how in-depth this is. So you have the property tax division, lots of information that you can go through. The mineral tax division. So in other words, this is pretty big for Campbell County, but also for the state as well. And you can find lots of great information about mineral taxes here. You can find excise tax information. So excise is another term for sales and use tax. So you can find lots of great information about excise taxes, which would include things also like cigarette taxes or alcohol taxes, or even gas taxes. All right. You've got the liquor division. Oh, I guess I lied. Sorry. Liquor division. It's going to be its own separate thing. It's going to talk about the taxes or whatever that come from the liquor division. Wyoming has a monopoly. This goes back to Prohibition. Interesting history. Not going to get into all of it. But the fact of the matter is Wyoming has a monopoly on spirits and wine in particular. And so you can see all of the information as far as what they've collected in revenues from the liquor division. And I believe that's it. So again, another great report. This is one that you definitely want to pay attention to. Again, you can spend hours if you're kind of a nerd like me going through some of this stuff, but lots of great information. And all of this information, again, these are, let me go back to me. This is ways to get good, reliable information that can help project in a positive, good, educated way what our future budgets ought to be. Lots more I can say on that, but I'm going to leave it at that for right now. So I hope this was helpful to you. I'll put out some other videos where we'll actually look at some of this data more in depth, and we'll talk more about Campbell County's budget. So thanks. Take care.